Hermie Ames's father was the mayor. And then there was, I know who would have been probably would have been Sherman Peterson, who was the butcher down on Work Street, South Work Street. I would say Sherman Peterson, as far as I remember. What's his name? Well, lived over here on Mason Street too. What the heck was his name? Doggone it. Anyway, I can't remember his name, but he lived over on Mason Street. He was a nice old fella. Bert Huff. Yeah, I think Bert Huff was a mayor a long time ago. Then I remember Hermie Ames's father was. I remember, but then I can remember from Sherman Peterson on, I can remember most of them. You had Al Josephson was there for a long time. In fact, I was, and then when I come back here from law school, I was here, a couple of years. That was in trying to think here. Anyway, it was the year that Frank Rozek and Bud Colson and I ran on a Progressive Party ticket, and we beat Al Josephson, who'd been in there for a long time. He was in with his Republicans were in there for several years, and Frank was the first Democrat to really, and we went in on a Progressive Party, but he was the first Democratic mayor that we had for a long time. And that, about 1960 is when that happened, and I remember that was a real change in the village. 3 young guys running against 3 older guys, and we became the village. It was good for the village. It's we had at that time we were having some police problems and some other problems internally, and we cleaned them up. And not that I did anything to do it. It was just a circumstance that it needed to be done, and we did it. And we got rid of the police chief and got a new department in there, and we had a couple other problems we took care of, and ever since then the village has been running pretty well.
You, in fact, worked for the village when you were a kid, didn't you?
Yep. When I was a young man, my Uncle John was the Department of Public Works superintendent, and I collected garbage on 2 days. And the worst job I ever had is they put me down at the what do you call it, center for the sewer, down at the sewage disposal plant. And I can still remember they would put me down with a big crane in the morning with my paintbrush, my scraper, my paintbrush, and my lunch. And they come back, they put me down at 7 o'clock, and they come pick me up at 4:30. And I can remember I was down there with all the little frogs and all the other crap that goes with the sewage disposal thing. But anyway, my Uncle John always gave me the worst job that he had. But it was good for me. I learned how to lay concrete. We did sidewalks and curbings. We patched streets. We tore trees. We cut trees down. We cleaned out the sewers. We did a little bit of everything. But yeah, I worked for the village 2 or 3 summers. In fact, even the summer when I came home from the Army, I worked a couple months before I went to law school. And I may have worked the first summer after that I was down to law school. I may have worked for him. I worked a few years for the village. And then after I got out of the Army, or out of the service, went to school and then came back here. I was the acting mayor for 2 years under Frank Rozek's regime. And subsequent thereto, I was village attorney for, I don't know, 13, 14 years, whatever it was, after that.
Mm-hmm. This is your entire life, this Village of Falconer.
Oh, yeah.
You've noticed probably much change, and probably much has been the same.
Yeah, a lot of it's been the same. We had a couple of years back, 15, 20 years ago, maybe more than that, we had quite a bit of construction, especially down in the area off of Central Avenue. Falconer Realty Corporation built several homes there, and there were a few homes built up in the area where I built. But there's never been too much growth, but there's always been consistency. A house in Faulkner, if it's put on the market at a reasonable rate, will sell very quickly. People like living in Faulkner. The school system is good. The village itself is excellent. Their plowing, their maintenance of streets, and things of that nature are terrific. They've always taken care of the citizens and the taxpayers, and everybody just seems to get along well. No problem at all.
If you had to visualize what you would like to see the village to be 20 years from now, what would it be?
I've always wanted to expand a little bit, but they seem hesitant to do that, and maybe they have reasons for it. We did have a situation between the railroads and the streets as they were laid out. It was difficult to expand, but there are a few areas that could be expanded. I don't think it ever will happen. Everybody seems to like the Lakewood, West Delicate, Bemis Point area for growth as far as homes are concerned. As far as business, Faulkner has always had its share of good businesses. Unfortunately, we've lost a few here in the last several years, but I can remember when I was a lad, we had 3 Worcester mills here. We had the Adzonia, we had the National Worcester Mill, we had the Ferncliff. We had Kling's Furniture, the American Manufacturing. We've had a lot of industry here, and people could always get a job. In fact, I can remember when I was a young boy, I worked at the National Worcester Mills a couple of years as a bobbin setter, and one of the things we used to laugh at was the fact that we called them greenhorns in them days. They'd be coming over here from Italy and Sweden. They'd land on the shores of Chautauqua Lake here, and the next morning they'd have a job. There was always a job for somebody. Mm-hmm. Today, people are unemployed. We didn't know what unemployment was back in the 40s and 50s. I mean, you could get a job anywhere. And I think that's the difference. I mean, like Marlin Rockwell was going great, all the furniture factories. In fact, when I was a senior in high school, I wrote an article on the industries of Jamestown area. And believe it or not, there were 42 furniture factories from the boat landing to the edge of Faulkner. Today, what is there, 4 or 5 of them maybe? Yeah. There's 42 of them back in the 40s. But times have changed. As far as the village is concerned, I hope it never changes. It's a great place to live. People are good. They help each other. They don't seem to push the bad things about people in town. They always seem to be helpful. If somebody's sick, the people are there to help them, bring them food, take care of the kids. It's a good place to live. And it's a small enough place where most people know everybody. Over
time, this is a personal question, are you Republican or Democrat? And has that made a difference in this community?
I'm a Democrat, registered. I vote the way I feel. I can tell you I vote for anybody who I think will help the community. And I've always done that. And if you want to know the reason why I'm a Democrat, it's very simple. There's an unwritten rule in Albany that if you go to law school or Albany State College, you get a job working for the congressman, or I'm sorry, the senator or the assemblyman. And when I went down there, it was, Magnuson. Chuck Magnuson's father was the assemblyman. And I remember Bob Slidell, Benny, I, and Bill all went down there. And Senator Pierce from Olean and Magnuson from Jamestown had the authority to hire and fire. And they've always hired somebody. I'm the only guy who ever graduated from Albany Law School or Albany State College who did not work for the New York State government. He would not give me a job. And the worst part of it is, I'd just come home from the Army. I had not registered, but he said my folks were Democrats, and so consequently he couldn't give me the job. And that bothered me. It's bothered me since those young days of my life. I mean, all I need, they were paying, I don't know, $300, but it was $300 that would have put me through law school. And it turned out I ended up working for Interstate Motor Freight on the docks at night. And man, that was work. And that's when the unions were really tough. In fact, a couple times they chased us home because the union boys were coming up from New York City wanting to know why they had non-union employees on the payroll. But in answer to your question, I'm a registered Democrat, but I vote for who I think is the best person.
Now, it was interesting to me that Ross Spoto was very much a Republican.
Yes, very much.
Bob Alessi, Sam Alessi.
Sam was, no, Sam, let me think. No, I think Sam was a Democrat, wasn't he? His father may have been a Republican. In fact, I think he was. Yeah. No, there's quite a few Italian Americans that are Republicans. Yeah. No question about that.
Like I was talking.
In fact, we've had them here in Falconer. I mean, I can remember you asked me. Al Jolson had Frank Raimondo, who was a Republican. Al Gable was on that board at that time, but we've had some, yeah, no question.
I honestly could not tell you today, when I sit at the table with those 5 guys, who's a Democrat and who's a Republican.
All right.
I know they run every year. Right. I pay no attention.
Well, that's what I like about Falconer. It really doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat. The chances are they're going to vote for the man. Right. And they figure if he can do it or she can do it, then that's the one that they want. And they do vote that way. And I think it's good. I think it's good. I don't like this partisan politics. I'd rather have 5 people down there, your mayor and your 4 trustees that are looking out for the welfare of all the taxpayers instead of just one select group. And it's worked out well. And I think they've done a good job.
I'll tell you a little, to turn it off and tell a story. Did you see the time coming, Lou, when, in fact, the village and the town, the mergers are a real process?
I think they should. The police departments did merge, and they did very well. There's been no problem since then. And I think the street department and the town highway department should merge, because you got a duplication of effort in more ways than one. Number one, the town of Ellicott has their building here where they have their equipment. They've got one item like a roller or a grader or any kind of a mechanical piece of equipment that they need. And the village has got the same thing. The village has got a roller. The village got graders. They got dump trucks. They got snow plows. And there's no need. They only use the things maybe once or twice a year, and each of them has one. There's no need for that. In fact, I was on a committee many years ago with when Fred Madison was the town of Ellicott supervisor. Hermie Ames was the mayor in Falconer. Carlson was in Jamestown. Carlson was in Celeron. And we had several meetings where we were trying to make the greater Jamestown community and merge. Mm-hmm. And even if they didn't merge the municipalities, at least use the equipment. Mm-hmm. Everybody have a use of the equipment. And then we also were trying, we thought we had it done at one time, where Falconer's fire department was going to have 2 fully paid people from Jamestown in the department, and then the volunteers would be called in as soon as the fire, but we'd have 2 full-time paid people here. Mm-hmm. There'd be 2 full-time people in Celeron, 2 full-time people in, Celeron, Falconer. Yeah, West Ellicott was part of ours. But we figured that if we did that, we would be able to spread out the expense of maintenance for the equipment for the village streets and city streets. And I must say that the Village of Falconer does a wonderful job as far as maintenance, mm-hmm. plowing streets, repairing streets, doing of that nature. And I think it would be good because all this equipment, now look at all the equipment the city's got, the village has got, the towns have got, it's all duplication of effort. They could all be using it. And the problem you have, of course, is each group thinks they're going to lose their jobs. And so they're opposed to it. But I don't think that's the case, because I think by attrition and voluntary retirements, they wouldn't have that problem. And in answer to your question, I think that is what is wrong with Jamestown. You know, I happen to be in Georgia, just north of Atlanta. I can't think of the county. Cobb County, Georgia. Mm-hmm. They have everything is county. Sheriff's Department, Department of Public Works, the school systems, everything. All their municipality is county. And you can't believe the growth they have there. And you don't have this different, like here we got the city, county, town tax, or village town tax. there it's one tax, and it's for schools, it's for everything.
Right.
And those areas seem to develop and really seem to get along a lot better than, they don't seem to have the problems we have. I don't know. It's too bad. I really feel badly. I feel badly about the problems they're having in Jamestown right now. I feel badly with the county, with the layoffs and everything. Right. I mean, you know, it does come to a point where it's got to stop.
Right.
And unfortunately, somebody gets hurt when it stops. But it's still a great, don't get me wrong, this is a great place to live, raise your family, and I love it. I'm just a few miles away from the best hunting and fishing in the world, and the people are great. You don't have to, you may never become wealthy or have all the things that you might get in a larger community, but believe me, we have a lot of things that I'm grateful for.
Speaking of things you're probably grateful for is your wife.
Oh, yes.
How did you meet her?
Well, I was in law school, and a friend of mine in law school, classmate, wanted to know if I wanted to go out on a blind date one night, so we were going to the movies, and he introduced me to Emily Potter from Lyons Falls, New York, who was in nursing school.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to the movies, and if I recall correctly, we went out dancing a little bit after and had a beer or something, and I asked her if she'd like to go out again, and from then on, I started dating her, and I married her between my second and third years of law school. I've been very happy since. She's been a tremendous asset to me. We've had 2 wonderful children, Lori, and she married Timmy Becker. They got 2 little girls. My son Larry's married to Cindy, and they have 2 boys, and I can't ask for anything more. I'm a very happy man.
You bring Emily back.
I've had 48 wonderful years with my wife, and she's been good for me.
Are you hearing all this, Emily?
I guess not.
So you bring Emily Potter home for the first time, and you introduce her to your mom and dad, Lodestro, and you're probably everybody else Lodestro. And
Oh, yeah.
She's not a Lodestro, and she doesn't have a vowel at the end of her name. What was the reaction?
My dad took a liking to her right away, so there was no problem there. My mother wanted to know why I didn't bring home a nice little Italian girl, and I told her that I had not met one that I thought I wanted to live with the rest of my life. But I liked this girl, and I'd like very much for her to be my wife. And my sisters took to her all right, but my aunts, they couldn't understand why I would be bringing home an American to get married, you know. And they used to call her the Americana, and it used to upset her awfully. But no, she's been very good to me. She's been a tremendous wife, really. She's been behind me everything I've ever done or ever wanted to do, and she's been a wonderful mother. Can't complain.
I think the entire Bar Association applauds you for putting up with you.
I appreciate that. I'm sure that I'm not the easiest person in the world to live with, and she has put up with a lot. Yes.
No, it's been great fun, but it's, you know, you have been a real credit to the profession, and you were the first recipient of the award honoring from the Bar Association.
And I really appreciated that. That was a very nice award. It made me feel good.
Well, you're out of 100 people, they selected you first.
That was great. Believe me.
Yeah.
That was great.
Well, you've been great. I appreciate your time, and this has been a hoot.
No problem. Glad I could help you.
Well, this is all part of the history of the Bar Association.
Good.
And Falconer and everything else, and probably we could talk.
Now, I'm one of the senior citizens now, you know, and I've seen a lot. In fact, my wife and kids kid me. They want me to go around town and with a transcriber and transcribe things that I remember, you know, as a child, and what was here and what was there. And there's been a lot of changes in the village. Downtown's changed a lot. I can remember going downtown Friday nights, Saturday nights, and the place was crowded. You go in and we had all kinds of stores. We had meat markets, we had dry goods stores, we had drug stores, we had restaurants, candy stores. I mean, I can remember as a kid, the Mayfair restaurant was the greatest place in the world to go to, and then later on the State restaurant where the kids hung out. And it's always been a good community. We used to have the recreation dances upstairs of the community building after sporting events. And the kids came there and they kept out of trouble. We didn't seem to have the problems they have today with the drugs and the drinking and everything, but times have changed.
You should do that, by the way. I'm a big oral history guy. You know, you should walk around and talk.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, my kid. I like to kid my kids where I was born over on Everett Street. You know, I tell them I should buy that house and put a memorial there, the Lucian Lodestro Memorial. You know, they break up on that one all the time. It was my grandfather's house on Uvalde. He owned it, and we lived there when I was born.
Well, I don't think there's anybody around who more represents Village of Falconer than you.
Oh, there might be a few people, but
No, but I mean in the community-wise.
Yeah.
I mean, just...
well, I've done a little bit over the last 72 years. I've tried to help out in the community. I've been active in a lot of the organizations like the Legion and the Elks, and we had the Falconer JCs here. I was active in the Holy Name at the church, and I guess I was past president a couple times. And I was active with the Boy Scouts when the kids were little, and I've tried to. I mean, the community's been good to me, and I've tried to give back to the community as much as I could. I've done a lot of volunteer work. You know, as village attorney, believe me, that's volunteer work. And I mean, sometimes it's difficult, especially when you live here, because you got two factions, and some of them like what you're doing, some don't like what you're doing, but you got to do what you got to do and do what's right. And as long as you do what's right, as long as you can live with yourself. And I've always been able to get up in the morning, look in the mirror, and say, "Hey, you're okay."
Yeah.
As long as you can do that, I guess you're all right. But no, it's really been a good place. It's a nice little town, a lot of nice people, and it's a tremendous place to raise a family. Believe me, I'm so grateful that I was able to raise my kids here, and I was happy to be raised here. I had a good childhood. I loved it here, and I came back. I've always wanted. I've never had a desire to leave here. So it's been good.
You've been...